Pony Express. Check out their line of penetration testing devices, including the Pwn Pad, Pwn Phone, and Pwn Pro. For enterprises, there's Pwn Pulse, providing continuous visibility into wired, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth spectrums across all physical locations, including remote sites and branch offices. For all those hard-to-reach places, there's Pony Express. Visit them on the web at ponyexpress.com. In order to deliver the maximum degree of privacy, personal data must be protected without action from an individual. In fact, this requirement is defined in the General Data Protection Regulation, also known as GDPR. What if you could reliably and efficiently build privacy into your information security programs by default? StealthBits Technologies provides solutions that allow data to be collected and used in a manner that achieves GDPR compliance. Privacy by design and by default is not just a GDPR requirement, it's the foundation of StealthBits Technologies. Visit stealthbits.com to learn more today. Gain control of cyber risk with Tenable.io, the first vulnerability management platform built for today's elastic assets like cloud, containers, and web apps. Discover a fresh, asset-based approach that prioritizes vulnerabilities while seamlessly integrating into your environment. And improve ROI with the first elastic licensing approach based on assets, not IP addresses. Tenable.io delivers the data and context you need to secure your elastic attack surface. Start your free Tenable.io trial today by visiting Tenable.io. Welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. Quick announcement, ITPro.tv's courses now include Computer Hacking Forensic Investigator V9, Kali Linux, CompTIA A+ 901, and Accelerated CompTIA Security Plus. Premium annual memberships include all video content as well as access to virtual labs and Q&A forums. You'd normally pay $85.70 a month or $857 per year, but we have a special offer for our listeners and viewers. For a limited time, get 30% off monthly memberships for the lifetime of your active subscription by visiting itpro.tv/enterprise security and using the discount code ES30. John, we're here talking about malware, endpoint defenses. My first question is, when you're plotting your strategy for endpoint defense, how important is the configuration of the actual product itself?
All right. So this is interesting because we've been getting a lot of calls on this at IONS and a bunch of my former students, and I think I talked about it a little bit last week on the show. But before you actually start moving to kind of advanced endpoint defense and you start looking at like the Cylances, the CrowdStrikes, or whoever you want to look into, I think there's some crap that needs to be done first. First, are your hosts firewalled? That means every single workstation is firewalled off from each other, so I can't pivot laterally. And that's number one. Number two, do you have behavioral analytics enabled in your SIEM? If you don't have those two things done, I would also throw in internet whitelisting. If you're not doing those three things, then don't bother with this yet. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think it's the amount of noise. So we talked about Carbon Black earlier, and the big complaint that we get from a lot of people with Carbon Black is the amount of white noise, the amount of alerting that they actually get makes it very difficult to sift through that noise. By reducing your lateral movement, by reducing the amount of websites that your users can go to, and we can talk more about how to do that, and by using user behavioral analytics, it's going to reduce the amount of noise and crap that you have to cut through. So I would say that there's some things you have to do that are easier and cheaper. Do those first before you start moving to some type of advanced endpoint security suite.
So it's interesting you put UBA or EUBA as easier than endpoint defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
And the vast majority of the products that are out there, you basically plug it in either on a span point, you put it on towards your SIEM. Somehow you get it hooked in. Microsoft hooks in more or less natively, and it learns, and it's basically looking for anomalies. Like a user account logged into 15 systems, that's abnormal. That should not happen, and that's easy to do. It's easier to do. Let me put it that way.
And it's a good qualifying, which thing is qualifying the data that you're going to go mine from other places as well, right?
Yeah, so if you get an alert from a workstation and you can pull up the alerts from that workstation and you can see that there's no user account that's been moving off of that box, there's no hits laterally moving, then you can panic a little less. Right. But if all of a sudden you get an alert and all of a sudden you see that system is trying to connect to 15 other computer systems and is being blocked by firewall rules, now it's time to panic a little bit more. And either way, that particular situation is contained by the things you did before the EDR solution.
Right.
And it helped mitigate that overall risk far more than your endpoint defense security solution could do.
So do you put EDR on all your systems, servers too, all clients?
I think that's what you got to work to, don't you? I mean, I see a lot of customers, they start at their servers because they think somehow the servers are the bastion of where the malware is going to go, and that's crap. If I'm going to get access to your data on your servers, I'm going to get access to the data on your servers by impersonating a user account from a workstation.
Right.
So a lot of people like to start there. That's fine. I would recommend, instead of looking at its servers and all clients, roll it out to the security team first, then the desktop support team, then the systems administrator team. Roll it out in those increments. So you're starting out with some highly trained technical people that can give you good feedback, rather than saying the computer's not working and you're like, what does that mean? Well, I'm working and it's not doing it. Well, we want people that actually can give you good feedback.
My response to that is, it's not working, is you're killing me, Smalls.
You're killing me, Smalls.
So, do you use the same EDR solution on all of those different systems and parts of the organization? Do you use two different ones? Do you combine them to have multiple EDR solutions? These are the questions that I get most often, John.
This is dude, and we've talked about this offline. It's getting very, very hard for me to say you're already using Symantec, or you're using Malwarebytes, or you're using Sophos, to say, yeah, you should put Cylance on top of that.
Right.
Because a lot of these vendors, like Malwarebytes today, really kind of pushing this, is already doing what Cylance and CrowdStrike does. Now, you can argue that Cylance and CrowdStrike and some of these vendors are doing it better. Good for you. That's fantastic. But whenever we're talking about implementing security, especially endpoint security, if you have one vendor, like let's just use Symantec for an example, and they do data loss prevention, they do their antivirus, they have the firewall, they have this next generation stuff, or Malwarebytes is probably a better example, Malwarebytes and Sophos. How the hell can I, as a security representative, as a consultant, recommend to a company that you have a whole nether stack of security products running at the exact same time? I just don't see how that works. And that's why I keep thinking these large vendors are going to gobble up and destroy eventually the Cylances and the CrowdStrikes of the world.
Right. Do you put ransomware in a different category? I feel like there's products on the market today, John, that do a better job with ransomware than some of the larger products for endpoint detection and response.
They absolutely do, but that's because they move so slowly, right? The large vendors just don't move that quickly. But honestly, the best protection against ransomware, I think we've talked about this on the show many times, you talked about it on Security Weekly, is make sure you have backups. And, that's number one. Doesn't really matter. You're going to get hit. Just be ready for getting hit.
Right. So when you do have one, basically, and I agree with your recommendation, is to settle in on one platform, because I think the configuration and the management needs to be honed in on one platform. If you've got multiple platforms, one in one area, one in another area, or multiple EDRs running on the same host, you have got a management nightmare. I like to manage it from one spot and manage it well, right? I think the difference, oftentimes, as you've pointed out, John, and we've seen, the difference between getting infected with something and not is a lot of times the configuration of your EDR. And so that special attention needs to be paid to that, and you can pay that special attention if you've got one solution. Okay. Now, how much of a concern is performance and scalability in this mix?
And I think that's one of the things, the reason why Carbon Black is hitting on this so hard, right? Is that concept of scalability. If you're someone like a Symantec or a McAfee, or even now a Carbon Black as well, then there is no question at all about your bona fides about scaling. Whether or not you're effective or not is a completely different question.
Yeah.
But these guys specialize in not breaking crap tons of stuff, almost to a fault. So, yeah, I think that ability to scale, and the thing that sucks is almost every single vendor you talk to is going to say that they can scale 100,000 plus nodes. Yeah. And I think that's why getting a recommendation is so key. Say, I want to talk to someone that has implemented this at 100,000 nodes, and I want to get an honest to God kind of recommendation from them. And that's something anybody should have. Because usually a lot of these vendors, especially the smaller ones, they're like, we're in the top 20. We're in the 20 of the Fortune 100. Well, you think when they say that they have it deployed at every single endpoint, and that's not true.
Right.
A lot of times when they throw that in the bucket, it's like, well, Bank of America just purchased us for 15 systems, so we're going to say that we have one of the Fortune 100 companies in the bag, and that's just you got to actually talk to some real customers. Those testimonials are key.
Right. So do you don't often recommend rip and replace? I don't either. When I
No.
advise people, if they have something in place, it's installed and working, they're familiar with it. The cost to rip out a Symantec or McAfee and put something else in, I struggle with justifying that really to any organization. I mean, unless you have a really crappy installation and it's not working, and the person who used to run it just left. Like, there are some extraneous, circumstances out there that might be the case. For the most part, I'm like, stick with what you got and configure it and manage it well.
And the other thing about that, Paul, is all of these up and comers. Like if we're talking about Malwarebytes, if we're talking about WebRoot, if we're talking about, I would say even Sophos, right? These guys have a very targeted marketing strategy that as soon as they see in one of their potential customers a switching over of a CIO, CTO, CISO, they swarm, because it's much easier to convince a new CIO, CSO, CTO to switch out, rip, and replace than it is somebody that's actually entrenched. So I would say, if you're a new CIO, CTO, if you're somebody that's moving into that role, be very wary of burning everything down and starting over again. Be very wary of starting from scratch or starting up brand new tech initiatives. Move carefully.
Yeah. And I think most C-levels in security that have to face those decisions are very well aware of that rip and replace cost. That's the area they live in, right? And I think it's almost unfounded for a lot of the vendors to go prey on the new ones, because, a lot of them, they're not new to the game, right? They know what their rip and replace costs are, and there has to be a serious benefit. Again, they're going to increase their chances with that if that's one of the pain points of that organization is their endpoint defenses either aren't working, or it's a management nightmare, or it's causing issues. Then they're in a much more likely place to want to switch. So.
Yep, absolutely.
But I think most endpoint defense systems today, John, if you spend the time with it, certainly you can get them working. And everyone's environment's different, but how is you've tested a lot of these systems. How is the performance and the impact to the host OS these days?
I'd say it's a lot better. I did just get an email yesterday from someone at Carbon Black saying that alert was generated erroneously, and we apologize for that, blah, 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 blah. Alexander Jacobs, A. Jacobs at Carbon Black. So thanks for taking a moment. Nope, that's the sales rep. That guy was really, really cool. Maybe it wasn't Carbon Black, but I just got an alert from one of them saying, hey, something got weird. We're on it. We're going to fix it. And Cylance had a lot of those a year or so ago. And I see a lot of the newer vendors, they tend to make those mistakes more than the larger vendors of, impacting the endpoint. Because, let's be honest.
That's good advice for people. Yeah.
Yeah, at Symantec or McAfee, they spend probably millions of dollars on research and development, not just for new features, but making sure those new features don't crater some weird, obscure system.
Right. Regression testing.
Regression testing.
At scale, right, you're going to find in the larger vendors. No, I definitely agree. What else on this topic, John?
You said, what are the most common threats missed? And I would say for any of these, it's that targeted attack. Targeted attack is going to be able to bypass your security suite. It just is. We know that. That's what we do, Paul. That's what we do all the time. Right. But whenever we start looking at like the user behavioral analytics, when we start looking at that segmentation and stopping me from pivoting, moving laterally, that crap is basically your safety net. And those things are incredibly important. And you should absolutely be looking at those architectural changes before you actually take the jump into these products.
Do you see any of the newer vendors or existing vendors getting wise to some of the bypass techniques that you've widely publicized?
Okay, now that's funny because Brian Furman last week did a webcast. He released a tool called Powerline. And it was a brand new tool. We released it. The first initial release was at Sans Fire a few weeks ago. And then we did an open webcast to everybody. And I swear to you, like after we released that, within 24 hours, Cylance was catching it. Like as soon as we would run Powerline, it was ready to go. And bam, they were catching us every single time. Right. So during the webcast, it's kind of a hard webcast to watch in the middle because Brian goes through and makes changes to the code live in the webcast. And then someone tests it and they're like, yep, it's bypassing Cylance now. So we see that, but I think that's just because we pissed them off. And now they're watching us and they're trying to beat up our stuff, which is fine. I think that's great. But I wish that they would put that level of effort into all of the attacks that are out there, not just one like group that writes a blog post they don't like.
Well, there you have it. John, thank you very much for appearing on this episode with me, talking about malware and endpoint defenses. That concludes this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. See everyone next time. Thanks for listening and watching.